by a record or a video.
Let me raise a question with you, Beeman, and the rest of you. Before Snoop Doggy Dogg's debut, Dr. Dre's album Chronic last year was the biggest selling rap record that there was. This came in the wake of Dr. Dre's assaulting Dee Barnes, the VJ, because she had included Ice Cube in a segment she did on her show on NWA, which all of these people came out of. So he assaulted her.
Allegedly.
Okay.
Exactly. And that's not how it happened.
Huh?
I've heard a million different
versions. Okay, but we all know that he assaulted her. Well, he himself, I have seen him admit that he was wrong to do it.
I've sat this close to hear him say that it was a scuffle and she got pushed down and he was there and he was the richest one.
Well, I have seen him say that he was wrong to do it. He was charged with assault for assaulting Dee Barnes. However, he's a big selling rap. The point is, when you run into a Dr. Dre, do you say, I really love what you do, or do you say, I really have a problem with what you did to that sister? Good evening and welcome to Evening Exchange. I'm Kojo Nnamdi. For the past several years, rap music has been carving a successful niche within the music industry. And out of that music, a new form of lyrical content has evolved called gangsta rap. Rappers argue that their hardcore approach to their records is a true depiction of everyday life for them. Critics say it's degrading to women and is perpetuating a culture of violence. Joining me in this segment is Cynthia Delores Tucker, who heads the National Political Congress of Black Women. Her organization strongly opposes gangsta rap. Along with us is Game of the local rap group No Description Given. We'll see his partner in a second. His partner is Player, who is a member also of No Description Given. Joining us, WPGC's Assistant Program Director and DJ M.D. Throb. And finally, Belma Johnson is host of Black Entertainment Television's Teen Summit. Joining us via telephone is Gene Shelton, who is the Publicity Director for Warner Brothers Records in New York. Welcome to all of you, Mr. Shelton. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Let me just make sure, and we can hear you also. I'll start with a simple question that I'm sure will have a wide variety of answers. Mr. Shelton, since you're on the phone, you get first shot. What is gangster rap?
Well, I think gangster rap is a popular form of music that has been created for the most part by young African Americans who draw from experiences of their lives. And the influence of the music, what you hear in the lyrical content, is their experiences firsthand, and sometimes a fantasy, but it draws from their experiences in terms of what they've had to do on the street to survive.
Okay, Game. Player, I'm sorry. What's gangster rap?
Gangster rap to me is exactly how Mr. Shelton put it, except I would say also that it's more than just, the experience is a culmination of what's been going on for the past couple of years in rap, since rap started. Rap started with people basically doing the dozens. You got together, you just hang with your boys, and you would talk about each other. And you was, try to see who was the best at, putting the rhymes together and everything like that. So you were trying to make yourself look like the best person at it. Along came a lot more of the West Coast more gangster rap, where they talked a lot more about realism and about the way things were on that side. And it sort of combined to the point where now it's a little bit of both of them adding together, where you're the best at what you're doing. And if it happen to be gangbang, it happens to be hardcore, that's what you are. You'll represent yourself.
Do you consider yourself a gangster rapper?
I don't consider myself a gangster rapper. In the terms of, I do talk about reality in my raps, but a lot of it depends on how you define gangster rap. First of all, gangster rap is, to me, straight realism. We add on a couple of the extra, the fantasy stuff where people go off the deep end about how many people they shoot, how many girls they got, et cetera, et cetera. It gets a little bit crazy.
MD Throb, what's gangster rap?
Gangster rap is just basically the same diss raps that we've been hearing for years, only it's much more hardcore and much more explicit. And like Player was saying, it's a lot of things that don't need to be perpetrated in the community. That's why some of it doesn't need to be played anywhere other than by adults in their own homes.
Gain.
Gangster rap is reality. You know, if a rapper is actually a gangster and he's preaching reality, his reality is going to be gangsterism. You know, so it's going to come out as gangster rap. I myself don't consider myself as a gangster rapper, so my rap is not going to be gangster. My rap is going to be a different reality. It's just all runs the gamut onto what your reality is. If your reality is one thing, then it's going to be that thing. If your reality is gangsterism, then you'll have gangster rap. And that's about what it is.
Yeah, I really don't think gangster rap has too much to do with the music at all. I think gangster rap's just a label. It's just a handy little label you stick on any kind of music that is angry, or any kind of music that is offensive, or any kind of music that is selling. It's not anything. That's why you get all these different. If you ask 100 other people, they'll tell you for sure that it's this, and then another 100 people will tell you it's for sure something else. It isn't anything. It's just a label.
See.
Gangster rap is what gangsters have always been about. It projects a glorification of violence through guns, through sex, through drugs, and all the other negative forces that we as African American people have long separated ourselves from, and tried to remove these negatives and project the positives of our heritage and our culture. We are a people that have descended from kings and queens of Africa, and we gave the world math, its science, its astronomy, its language, and this defies all that we have in our history that we should be glorifying. And yet we find that our young people today are adopting what gangsterism meant throughout our history in this country. All of the negative forces and all of the negative cultures that I'm sure that our ancestors would abhor as we do in the National Political Congress of Black Men.
Gene Shelton, to follow up on what Cynthia Delores Tucker just said, suppose we take the black face off of it for a second and look at it historically, as she said, and we say that this is Al Capone. This is the language of gangsters elevated to an art form with a beat behind it. There's nothing different between what these young men are saying today and what Al Capone and his people were saying 50 years ago. It just now has a beat to it. What's the difference?
Well, I think that the difference of the concern that we have right now is where there is a crisis in our communities. There is a crisis within African American families, communities, and there is a lot of death out there. So we're looking at perhaps some of the influences of the shootings and the killings and the disrespect for life and the consequences of it. So that's where the real concern is, and I think that's where why we are having this program tonight, and we agreed to discuss it. I think that I have, from my experience in representing some rappers and over the past years, that there is again, drawing from experiences in terms of what is reality and what is not.
Okay,
but,
let's talk about reality for a second, because as far as I understand, either player or game, or both player and game, are or have been to college. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes.
What is your reality?
Our reality is just from where we come from. That
The
first
college
of all,
campus was not reality. The college campus was a phony place.
the college campus is truly reality. You can't dispute that. But I mean, first of all, we have to get the definition straight.
My point, though, is that you're not going to get popular making rap records about what you're experiencing on a college campus. You're not going to get paid for doing that.
Actually, first of all, what we are, entertainers. We entertain. I mean,
Sure.
what goes and sells is true. But at the same time, I mean, we could rap about whatever we wanted to. What we choose to rap about is, first of all, our business, and first of all, our art form. It is an art. And when we go out there, we drive through D.C. every day. I mean, you see the stuff. I mean, it's hard to just sit there and say, well, okay, I'm going to sit there and rap about this college and this environment, when half of our people, as everyone here well knows, are not there. Why are we going to
Go ahead.
Yeah, and on top of that, just because we both of us have been to college does not mean by any means that we've been sheltered. You know, it doesn't mean that my reality has to be different from somebody who's didn't go to college just because I'm going to college. I've seen a lot of people at college that have been, struggling, selling what they had to sell to get their money to stay in college. I've seen a lot of people who've done a lot of things just to be in college, because that's the direction they wanted to go to. And it's like, it doesn't matter that I went to college and, my reality is about college. And when I rhyme, that's involved in it. But when people say that gangster rap is...
Why is the only reality that's selling today the reality of the street? Why is it that all of the other experiences that you have in your reality, you have family in your reality, you have the college campus in your reality, you have church in your reality, you have neighborhood in your reality. Why is the only thing that sells the reality of the street?
Why does the nightly news every night focus on disasters? They don't say,
and
an airplane took off today and it landed safely and all the people got off and went to where they were going.
If it bleeds, it leads.
They talk about airplanes that crash. They talk about things that go badly. They talk about disasters. That's just the nature of what we call news. That's the nature of what we're interested in. We're concerned about problems.
But one of the things...
Anybody feel free to jump in at any point.
One of these things, one of the things that I wish our young people could understand is what we have always gone through in this struggle. We have been struggling since the days of slavery, and if they think they're having it bad now, what do you think our ancestors had during the days of slavery? We suffered dogs, we suffered ropes, we were lynched, we were beaten. I marched with Dr. King, and we were there with all kinds of threats to our bodies, but we never succumbed to it. And when they call us the names that you are calling us, we were ready to fight them. We were ready to march, do whatever we had to stop them. And so we're not going to do any less when we see our young people whom we love so much do the same thing. Just because you think you're having it tough, it's no need of glorifying. We always said we're going to overcome it. We're going to get out of it. We're going to be somebody. That's why we have people.
MD Throb, I'd like you to come
struggled.
in because I want to be more explicit about what we're talking about here. This is a family show, but since your young people are already listening to this, what C. Delores Tucker is talking about, what a lot of people are concerned about, is what is characteristic, it seems, of gangster rap music is referring to women as hoes and bitches. What is characteristic of gangster rap is talking a lot about violence and taking out other niggas, talking about other black people in more derogatory terms, talking about killing people, and talking about... Are there records that WPGC just won't play?
Yes.
Because of that?
Yes,
What
definitely.
records won't you play?
Indo Smoke. There are numerous records that we won't play. There are some that we play that have those references, and if the entire song doesn't if that doesn't spread out through the entire song, then we may play the song. If there's a bitch or an ass somewhere in the song, we may just flip that around. But if it's an out-and-out call to go out and look for and shoot my brother, or I'm going out and F this hole, then we're not going to play that, no.
Gene Shelton, you ought to know that ever since Ice-T pulled Cop Killer off of his album when he was with Warner Brothers, a lot of people seem to believe that it is the record companies that because they make the most profit off of this music, that they're the ones who are interested in keeping it going because it simply makes money, and in the final analysis, everybody wants to get paid.
Well, I have an opinion about that, and I don't think that the record companies are at least my record company is insensitive to this. I went through the war and back with Ice-T. He is a gentleman. I've represented him for 5 years, and all of a sudden he was gone because of Cop Killer. So there was a lot of pressure there because of Time Warner and its affiliations and the fact that the police came after Ice-T. I think that...
But let me interrupt for a second, because I think that's precisely the problem that people have, that we listen to these records, we hear all of the references that I just referred to, we hear about the killing, we hear about the hoes and the bitches, and then we have young people and sometimes record company executives saying, you don't know this individual, he's a gentleman. Well, we only know these individuals through what we hear them saying. And if we hear them speaking in those terms all the time, what you're saying is akin to people looking at the Rodney King beating and saying, don't believe your lying eyes. What you're telling us is, don't believe your lying ears. What you're hearing is somehow not what you're hearing.
Let me say this. Again, it goes back to what I was trying to say before. This concern is here is because there is a crisis within our communities, our African-American communities. Gangster rap is an art form. It's music. It's art. There is a line drawn between life and art. I think the reason that the emotions are so strong because of this particular art form is because there is a crisis going on in our communities.
Okay, let me allow
Mr. Shelton,
Yes.
that is the same argument they use for pornography. That is, it is an art form. There are art forms that are pornographic, and that's what this gangster and misogynist rap is all about. It's pornography.
No, it's
Well,
And all you have to do is, if your camera could catch these words, you will see that it's pornography because the words.
It's an art form too, and it's an expression. It's the First Amendment, freedom of speech, and it's an art expression.
Okay, player, go ahead.
Saying here again, I think if you look at, I represent a young group of gentlemen out of Mount Vernon, New York, called the Young Guns, and when BLS. On Monday announced that they would not play any more gangster rap on their air. As
We
a
can't see it.
publicist, I happen to be talking with the people putting this show together, and they interviewed the Young Guns, the YGs. These gentlemen, one has had a couple of years in the pen. They have had to survive. They're very articulate. They're very honest about where they're coming from. They're not taking the position that they are glorifying this.
Well, that's
They
what.
say, well, why are you attacking us and not attacking Arnold Schwarzenegger or Sylvester Stallone?
Okay, wait. Allow me to interrupt. We got a few more people who need to speak. Gene Shelton, hold for a second. Hold your thought. Go ahead, player.
Okay, first of all, rap is just like the days of old when it's storytelling. You're telling your story. Now, when the slaves came over, they used the stories of the fox and the
I have
hound.
to disagree with you. You
And-
can tell
no,
stories
excuse
without.
Excuse me. Let me say
without
this. Yes,
the language that's in these
that's very
rap
true. But
lyrics.
this is not all that there is to gangster rap. I've heard many stories where they use the same language, but there is a moral to the story. There is a reason why they use these words.
Well,
We don't use
Go
these
ahead.
words around
Go
children.
ahead.
Children are buying this. They're listening to it. It is wrong. No way in the world you can say it's right. To let
Don't let
the
the
children
children-
listen to
let the
this.
children
The shame is that what this is. I'm watching you guys go at it, and what it really comes down to, you're saying the same things. You speak different languages. It's really a question of language, and the problem is, it seems to me, that you're offended by the language. Never mind the message. You haven't even gotten as far as the message. You're talking about the words. Not the meaning behind the words, not the motivation behind the words, not the anger.
The words are enough.
Exactly. That's
We're not
that's
taught that.
clearly.
We shouldn't let our children hear this.
But
It's
but-
glorifying.
in-
It's glorifying the whole gangster culture. That's
But
what
we
it's
didn't
doing.
make the
In all
words.
due
We
respect,
didn't make the words.
in all due
Well, you're
respect,
using the words though.
In all
But-
due
but
respect-
the words
But
were
you're
given to
using
us.
the words.
We are using the words.
We've
that
had
were,
those words around for years,
Yes,
but black
they- yes,
people
they
have
have.
too much
Yes.
integrity about their culture to use them.
Richard
They have
Pryor
been
used
around for
Richard
centuries,
Pryor used
and
every
he
one of
stopped.
those
He
words,
stopped.
but he did it for
But he did,
years.
but he stopped when
after
was
he
with-
grew up and after he had
Yes,
made his
all
point
right.
and after he had exercised his anger for
He
it.
never used these
MD
words.
Thrawn.
He used
Not
every one of
using
those
these
words.
You're arguing about words that have
children.
been around for years.
Yes, yes, they are.
These words are nothing new to black people, white people, or any other people. This is my reality. Doesn't just include me. It includes everything that I see, do, and everything that the people around me see and do.
But
Just
our
because
children,
I
though.
talk about it and our children,
Our
exactly.
children are
You say
buying
our
these
children
records, they're
shouldn't be
listening
buying
to
this
them,
records.
but they're listening
now
to
you're
them.
allow me
getting
to raise a question here
And
because
African American
let me
women do
finish this
not
point.
want this message being sent through the young people to undermine and disrespect the female,
Well,
the
now
woman,
you're
and
getting
that's what they're doing.
Now you're getting to what may be the backbone of what the problem with the black community. You're saying don't want to let. This is a parent's responsibility.
Exactly.
And we
what is
are
a parent's
A parent is letting
We
their
are
child
parents.
listen to these
We are
records.
parents.
Well, that's when
but
we
a lot
come
of
to a
these young
freedom
people
of speech.
do not have
To
parents.
what
They
extent-
have
That's why we have freedom
dysfunctional
of
families.
speech.
We'll
They
get back
don't
to that
have
issue.
parents.
We'll
They
get back to that issue.
disadvantage.
We'll get back to that issue. But to what extent is all of this driven by a philosophy that permeates young people today that I'm familiar with, the notion of getting paid? Every young person that I know feels that they have a responsibility to get paid. To what extent is all of this phenomenon driven by the notion that once you're getting paid, anything you do or say is all right?
It's absolutely driven by that, but let's face it, that's the
So that's all right?
That's,
Once you're getting paid, whatever you do is all right.
The fact that Jack Kennedy was a crook, not Jack Kennedy, his father, I've forgotten his name.
Okay, John Kennedy.
No,
Joe Kennedy.
Joe Kennedy.
Joe Kennedy,
was a
the
crook.
parent.
It's forgotten. What he is the father of the senators and the ex-president.
But they're
and
not out here promoting it. You're promoting
This
it.
man-
behind
You're
closed
promoting
doors,
John
they
Kennedy
can money
ran
off
the
it.
But you're
country.
promoting it.
The
You're the
fact
one
that J-
that
the
you're
fact
letting
that
them
the
be-
fact that J.P.
they're
Morgan was a
exploiting.
crook and a shyster is forgotten. He's considered a great American. The fact that Thomas Jefferson owned slaves is forgotten. Almost anybody you look at in history who has become quote unquote a
Why
major.
are you promoting these negatives to our community?
All I'm saying is that
We-
there's
we
no
say-
difference
we say-
Why are
between
you
there's no
promoting
difference
this?
between
Why
what
did
those
this
people
come
did.
out? Why did
What is
this
this?
come out?
There's no difference between
Why
what those
is this
people
being
did.
Oh, this is
sold
Snoop Doggy Dogg.
for
Because
our
this is
kids
another form
to
of
see
freedom
this?
of expression.
It's pornographic.
It's a way
That's
that
what
they
this
wanna
is.
express
This
themselves.
is pornography.
Well,
And if you want to
but-
express
and if
it,
you
do it
not want
privately,
that,
but don't promote this filth
album
for
has a
our
sticker
young
on it
people to see
that says,
and to
"Don't buy."
emulate. That's what they're doing.
Oh, we
They're
have to take a
emulating.
short break, and when we come back, you'll see a little bit of what people like Snoop Doggy Dogg and Tupac Shakur are all about, so that if you have never seen a gangster rap video, we'll let you see a little bit of it when we come back. Stay with us.
Do you have this?
From the depths of the sea, back to the block, Snoop Doggy Dogg, funky as the doc. Went solo on that ass, but it's still the same. Long Beach is the spot where I serve my cane. Follow me, but you bet not slip, cause 9 tris ain't the years there for me to cleanse out my grip. So I ain't holding nothing back, and once again I got 5 on the 20s. It's like that, and as a matter of fact, cause I never hesitate to put a fool on his back.
Yeah, so keep out the manuscript. You see that it's a must we drop Gangsta.
What's my name?
That's a little bit of Snoop Doggy Dogg. You ought to know that Snoop Doggy Dogg's album debuted, and he is a debut artist, debuted at #1 on the charts. That's the first time in history that has ever happened. You also ought to know that he's facing murder charges out in Los Angeles, California. Tupac Shakur, I'm sure you've read about, who's facing charges all over the country for all kinds of things. Flavor Flav of Public Enemy facing charges in New York. A lot of people are wondering if these guys are trying to act out what they say on their records. Allow me to reintroduce our guest, Cynthia Delores Tucker with the National Political Congress of Black Women. We have the rapper Player here from the group No Description Given, MD Throb from WPGC, the rapper Game from the same group, and Belma Johnson of Black Entertainment Television. Also with us via phone is Gene Shelton, who is with Warner Brothers Records in New York. And we left when we were talking about this notion among young black people that we have to get paid and that it doesn't matter what you do in order to get paid. A lot of people are simply alarmed by the notion that young people feel that it doesn't matter what you do once you get paid for doing it, no matter who you degrade, whether you degrade black women, whether you degrade other black men, it doesn't matter what you say once you get paid. That is a vision of society without morality. We feel that it is our responsibility as adults to instill some morality into our young people, and here we have our young people seeming to argue that having no morality is a great thing.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is that it's true that there needs to be morality. It's just not true that banning certain kinds of artists from expressing themselves is going to give them that morality.
What suppose I were to say to you that everybody is in favor of free speech? There's a constitutional guarantee of free speech, but there's no constitutional guarantee of a record contract.
Well,
you can write all the crazy stuff you want to write. Why does somebody, Mr. Shelton, why does somebody feel that regardless of how immoral or how degrading is something that somebody decides to write and express themselves, why give them a record contract and have them put it out on the air?
Well, let me say this as far as Warner Records is concerned. Yes, we had some experience with Ice-T and Cop Killer. That artist is not on the label anymore.
Well, he left now. Y'all didn't kick him out.
Huh?
He left. You guys didn't kick him out.
Well, he's no longer on the label anymore. I had a situation when I was talking about the YGs. in doing a television interview, and the corporate people at Time Warner called and wanting to know what's up. You know, yes, I put them on the show because I have a record to sell, but I also feel it's very important for them to express themselves and explain what they are all about. You know, what this young man decided one day, he woke up and said, I'm taking from my brothers, I'm hurting my brothers. If there's a way that I can make bank without doing this, let me try this, and that's what he's doing. He is drawing from his experience, as we see it, as a negative thing, but he's trying to do something better. Is that wrong? I don't think so, and I think that we are basically looking at this and responding to it again.
Okay, let me bring the others into the discussion again.
Do you realize, though, you're putting those questions to the wrong people? I mean, I know Gene from Warner Brothers, and everybody here at this table is an African-American. Whereas, as you said, Snoop Dogg debuted #1 on the charts, but that was the pop chart. He would be #1 on a black
No,
chart,
what it
too.
means, though, what it means is that
what-
gangster rap is now driving the record industry. It's no
What-
longer
but
possible
who's-
to say
but who's
it's just a
doing
little
that?
small part of rap.
But who's
It is
doing
the
that?
biggest
See,
thing happening in the record
why
industry.
Like you said,
suburbs
like
of
you said, gangster rap and this sort of angry music and this sort of offensive language have always been around. What it had been until recently was a fringe element of black music. BET used to play these kinds of videos, but they played them within the spectrum of all the kinds of music.
Right.
How did they get to be the #1 stuff in the nation? It wasn't
Because
BET,
they're being
it wasn't
promoted.
black radio.
Because they're being promoted
Exactly.
by the
Who's doing
by
that?
the distributors and by the white masters of the industry who have always exploited us when they can make money off of us.
Exactly.
Okay?
And so why
But
are we all
therefore,
gathered here?
because you are abetting it and aiding it, because you ought to know that's what they're doing and not help the master to continue to destroy and control our
Let me
communities.
ask our young rappers a little bit more to explain themselves, because you keep saying you need to express yourselves. My own view is that you express yourselves. We have heard these records over and over again, and people are expressing themselves. What is being expressed? We know the story of what's going on in the black community. We know the story of the
We've
violence.
lived it all our lives.
What is it that you think we don't know?
Well, first of all, there are 8 million stories. You can't just say that, well, I've heard this rap, so therefore all black people are acting this way, or I have to act this way because this rapper is saying this. It's so many stories that it's never going to stop. As long as there's poverty, as long as there's people in the ghetto, you're always going to have a different story. And you keep saying that black people throughout history have had it
Yes.
hard, and it's incredibly
My dear
hard
brother,
right now.
you've never had to say, you've never
That is
had to be
correct.
told
I can tell you
that you didn't
correctly
have
now.
to go in. You couldn't go to a movie. You didn't have to be told that you had to drink from a
But I'm
black
quite sure
fountain.
your mother
Have you ever
wasn't
seen
a
a
You
crack
crack
didn't,
baby?
you didn't go
I'm
through
close.
anything that
I'm-
we
I'm
went
sure-
through.
I'm sure your
Yeah,
mother
when
was
I
a crack
first
baby.
came
through a
up,
drive-by, man.
Well, you don't
have
know
you,
that. People
have you
have
feared
gone
for your
through
life
worse than
every
what
day
you've
at
gone
school
through.
just from walking home from school? Have you seen crack
That's because
babies?
of this. That's because
That's
of
not-
the
Because-
glorification of this gangster rap. Because
That's-
everybody
Gangsta
is
rap
saying
just blew
now
up in the last
to
year
take
and a
a
half.
gun to school.
So see,
That was going
That's
on.
been glorified. It's
Okay,
been
one at a time,
glorified
please.
now.
Rap is not that old. Rap is about 10 years old. Basically, Run DMC's.
Well, is this helping
They
it?
started.
Is this helping that condition or perpetuating it?
It's bringing a spotlight
Is it
to it.
perpetuating it too? Is that why you're doing
expressing
it?
The Rodney King incident was repeatedly said on rap records constantly,
But what
and
does this
yet
do to help
nothing
it?
was
What
nothing
does this
was
do to help
no.
the
First
situation?
of all,
No, I
when
wanna know.
a person tells a story. When a person tells a story, I mean, we sit there and we teach our kids about Shakespeare. Why are we teaching about Shakespeare? How to decipher what Shakespeare said? I've learned it doesn't do anything
Well,
for
why
me.
isn't the
If you
whole
listen-
black
if you listen-
community? Why is
Gang.
the whole black community doing what you're doing? Why do we still have
That
mothers?
was-
Why do you still have mothers who are single parents trying to raise their children?
That's been going
to
on
do the
since-
very thing that you all are telling them not to do.
I want to get back to the misogynistic aspect of rap, of gangster rap, and its
Yes.
references to women. The Supreme Court has defined that certain words are fighting words.
Yes.
If somebody outside of our communities, if a white person were to walk into our communities and call my mother a whore or a bitch, or if he was to call me a nigger, I would go absolutely
After
crazy. We're listening to our
Exactly.
young men, calling our young women on this, on records that are selling in the
Disrespectful.
millions, records that are being bought in the majority by young white males. The majority of
They're the
gangster
ones who
rap
want
records
it.
today are being bought by young white
That's
males
right.
who are listening to black women being referred to in this way. But
right.
you're saying that once people get paid for doing it, it's okay.
Well, first of
I
all, I
don't
never
hear
said
anyone
that.
saying that.
No, no
See,
one ever
what
said
I think the
that.
biggest
You've
problem
never
is-
heard-
No, nobody at this table
No, no,
said.
no,
What I think the
this
biggest
table
problem
said
is,
that. I thought you
is that
never heard the
nobody
record.
listens. Nobody wants to listen. Everyone wants to say, "Shut up." No one wants to listen
Someone
to
said,
anyone
what
at
are
this
they
ta-
going to do to make money?
as
That's what someone said.
as you
Okay.
illustrate my point. No, you're not listening. You're
Listen,
not
we're
listening to us. You're not listening to the rappers. You're not listening to the children who the rappers represent. I mean, I came from Los Angeles. I saw guys that look like Snoop Dogg. I get 100. You can just drive through Long Beach. You'll see 100 guys. Am I right? Look just like Snoop Dogg. He's popular because he's
But
expressing.
you'll see 10,000 that don't look like
He's expressing something that doesn't get listened to. Somebody like me, real bougie and educated, and can string together a sentence, can get listened to all day. I get a television show. I have a voice. I have representatives all over, from actors to television anchors. Somebody like whatever his name is, Curtis Brodas, whatever his
Right.
real name is, doesn't get heard. This is a way for him to get heard. He's just saying, listen to me.
That's a way for him to get muddy, not to be heard.
no,
He get
no,
muddy.
Why don't we
To get
think
money.
about? Why don't we listen to the message? Why don't we lose our? Why don't we just
Because
take a
we don't
moment?
need
Because
children hearing that
we're
message.
mature enough to take a moment and listen to someone. Why don't we say, okay, his language is offensive. What is he trying to say? The way people listen to Red Fox a generation ago.
I think I'm
The way they
expressing
listened to
an
Richard
opinion
Pryor
here,
a
and I'm
generation
asking you
ago.
to refute my opinion. I think that what he's saying is, I want to get paid, and I'm going to
That's
say
all he's
anything
not-
that it takes
that's
to
all
get
I'm
paid.
doing.
Not him. Now that's true of many. I think, for instance, Eazy-E is that way. Now, that'll probably get me.
You make fine
That'll
distinctions,
probably get
brother.
me shot for saying that. But I happen to have met Snoop Dogg. Spent many hours with him on a particular day to do interviews with him and all of his posse and Dre. And I really don't think so. This is a spiritual guy. This is a guy who, when he talks to young people, it's not about getting paid. It's not about money. It's about women. He's trying to tell them something. He's trying to encourage them. These are people who have been written off.
MD
These are
Throb,
people
you're
that
in the
Newsweek
industry.
magazine has
You're in the
tries
industry.
to bury every week.
If this stuff wasn't selling, if these people weren't getting paid, would we be hearing all of this?
The music industry is driven off of sales.
Yes.
You may not hear it on the radio, but these records were selling 3-4 years ago. And at the same time, there are records that do a lot of cursing and calling of derogatory names, and you never hear anything about them because they don't sell, and they'll be gone.
My point
So
is,
one leads to the other. If the listener doesn't buy it, then the record companies won't push it, and it won't be sold. And
Mr.
it won't
Shelton,
be
if
on
you're
the
still
radio.
there, my point is that Public Enemy had a record called Don't Believe the Hype, and I'm beginning to believe that we're being sold a lot of hype by our young people and by the music industry, because Ice-T does no longer lives the reality of being a gangbanger in L.A. He lives in a multi-million-dollar mansion in L.A., yet he keeps on making records about this reality that he used to know 6 years ago.
And Peter Jennings is not out of a job, yet he does stories about people who are, because he's speaking for them.
He doesn't
and
make
he's
them up,
speaking
though.
to them.
He-
Neither
Mr. Shelton, your turn.
He is not
Go right ahead.
disrespecting
Well, in making reference to Ice-T, Ice-T is an entertainer.
One second, please.
He's an
See.
artist. He's an actor. He's a rapper. He writes raps. He acts in films. Arnold Schwarzenegger acts in films. What's the difference? It's art. I think the issue is it's how it's received. If a young person on the street doesn't has the inability to decipher.
Well,
the
Mr.
difference
Shelton, allow me to interrupt because I'm hearing two different things. You're saying it's just art, and the people.
art forms that are being.
You're saying it's art, and our young people are saying it's reality.
It's
Which is it?
reality. So if a young blood at 15 years old is on the streets of Washington, D.C., and he sees a Snoop Doggy Dogg video, a YG video, or whatever, and it's gangster, and he interprets that to say, well, it's okay to shoot and kill because they do it in videos, then I think that I can't hold the artist responsible for that.
There was
We
a
all
problem.
know the power.
There was a problem before that video came out, before that record came
We
out.
all know the power of the media. We all know how powerful it is. And when you see something over and over again, and these children are listening, I had a nephew, didn't know what he was listening to. Most of us, as the lyrics say on our chart there, are you listening? If you're not, your children are. But this young man here has said
children are.
that they make it sound so good and look so real that I would drink and smoke drugs just like on the video. And I would listen to the music and put myself in the place it speaks of. My hood girls became hoes and bitches. And what's so bad about it, they accepted it, and now they're doing the same thing.
Mr. Shelton,
We
we're
are
going
not
to carry
gonna
on the
accept these
conversation, but
kind
I'm
of-
afraid we're going to have to lose you because we want to get a few of our callers at the local level here in Washington, D.C. to join us. Thank you very much for joining us.
Bye, Gene.
Okay, Mr. Shelton is
He's
gone.
gone.
Getting back to the issue of reality, I have heard Bushwick Bill at a conference of the National Association of Black Journalists, after consistently referring to women as hoes and bitches, say that that was the only, all of the women he knew were like that, and people actually believe that. I don't believe that. That's hype.
And we don't
You know
believe
that
it.
all of the teachers that you know that all of the elderly women that
Disgrace.
you know that the grandmothers and all of the mothers that you know are not like that. So when young black people tell me that's the only reality I know, every woman I know has ever been like that, that's hype.
And let me tell
You're
you,
selling me the hype, 'cause that's not
Kojo,
true.
let me tell you, in the schools, the teachers are telling us, even at the Head Start level, 5 and 6, the little boys are calling the little girls those same names because they hear it over and over and over again. And they're going to grow up disrespecting African American women, even their
These-
mothers and their grandmothers.
These words,
That's
these-
what they're being taught.
And these words have been said whether if they didn't have parents, grandparents. I've heard very many older
true.
parents.
But don't
saying
tell me
these
that's
same-
the only reality you know.
But you also hear
or that anybody else
you
knows.
also hear a lot of them not saying this. We always have to give our children the best.
The first
not
thing,
the worst, 'cause no
the
one's
first thing
perfect.
that I have to say
But
is
give them a
the
chance.
art-
give the children
art-
a chance. That's all we're saying.
Go ahead.
And
first of
don't
all, you said-
disrespect black women.
You're
Black
correct.
women. My
But
mother,
hold on,
my
first of all,
grandmother, they were
It's so
not
sad
bees
because
and
you're so
whores.
right about so many things, but the part of
They
what
won't
it is
do
is
it.
All we're saying
that
is we
there's-
want that stopped. That's all.
but
We
you
want
just-
these references stopped.
You're so right
You
about
don't need to make money by doing this. The two highest entertainers paid today do not use this language. Oprah Winfrey and Bill Cosby do not use this language. There are ways that all of this talented energy can be used constructively and in a sense that will give pride and dignity
See, but
to
that's,
your
they
community,
speak
your
for you.
children,
They
and your
speak for you. They represent
No,
you.
they represent.
Sure they do. Oh, they
Well,
represent
wait a
you.
minute. Even
Oprah
the
Winfrey.
Thriller, even Michael Jackson didn't use it when the Thriller was made. I didn't hear any of this vile language.
Right,
let me
but
say
they
this.
represent you.
He sold some of the best. I think he was one of the highest
But, I mean, first
paid
of all,
entertainers there was.
I know coming up that, the first thing I didn't do was run home and turn on Oprah. I don't listen to Michael Jackson. I want to listen to people who I can relate to. I want to listen
That's
to people
fine.
who can tell
That's
me.
fine.
You want him to
can
curse?
Let me raise
You
the
want him to
question.
use his curses?
But
Is
first
that
of
all
all,
you can
no,
relate
man,
to?
man, let me
Then
speak,
you
let me
need
speak, let me
some
speak,
help.
let me
Finish,
speak. No,
That's all you
Go
can
ahead.
relate to.
Finish.
When I-
Calling women and
No,
your
no.
sisters and your mothers and your grandmothers whores and bitches.
Let me speak.
That would be no worse than this person you just read their letter saying that he was influenced by a record or a video.
Let me raise a question with you, Beeman, and the rest of you. Before Snoop Doggy Dogg's debut, Dr. Dre's album Chronic last year was the biggest selling rap record that there was. This came in the wake of Dr. Dre's assaulting Dee Barnes, the VJ, because she had included Ice Cube in a segment she did on her show on NWA, which all of these people came out of. So he assaulted her. Okay.
And that's not how it happened.
Huh?
That's
Yeah,
not
I've heard,
That's
really
not
how
how
it
it
happened.
I've heard a million different
Versions.
Okay,
versions
but we
of
all
that
know that he
story.
assaulted her.
Well,
He
no,
himself,
that's-
I have seen him,
alleged.
I have seen him admit that he was wrong to do it.
I've seen him say he
I've
had
sat this
nothing
close
to do
to
with
hear him say that it was a scuffle and she got pushed down and he was there and he was the richest one.
Well, he sings
I have
about
seen
doing that.
him say
he
that
glorifies
he
it,
was
saying, "Do
wrong
it."
to do it. He
That's what
was
he says in
charged
his
with
songs.
assault
He
for
tells
assaulting
everybody
Dee
else
Barnes.
to do that.
However,
But the
he's a
point
big
is-
selling rap. The
He
point
tells
is,
everybody else
when
to
you
do it.
run into a Dr. Dre, do you say, I really love what you do, or do you say, I really have a problem with what you did to that sister? Or do you say, this is a man who gets paid so big, I can't afford to annoy him, I have to hero worship him, I have to admire him, and as a result, nobody tells him that, no, that wasn't right. You can't do that.
I asked him, why are you doing it?
Because
Rather than giving my opinion or judging it, I just asked him why.
Because it's in his records. He's telling them to do it. He's saying
No.
to F them and to do
I
this
asked
and do
Dre,
that.
why does he talk about those things?
I see.
And what
Would you
was
be
his
interested to know what he
response?
said?
Yes, I'd like to know.
He said, because there are people who need for me to talk about those things. There are people who are not spoken for, who are not spoken to, who need. You're not one of those people. Certainly, you're not one of those people, and I'm not even one of those people.
majority of
I'm one of the
people are
people
not.
who, like you, in the television business, have to take a break from time to time. We have to do that right now. When we come back, we'll take your telephone calls. We promise. Stay with. Welcome back. We're talking about gangster rap and doing a host of other things, as you can probably tell at this point. This is the segment in which we want to take as many of your telephone calls as possible. So before we start going at it again, let me get straight to you. It's your turn, caller. You're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Hi, Kojo. This is Tonya, and I would just like to say that I'm deeply offended a lot of times by the lyrics that I hear in gangster rap. And I know a lot of the youth say that the music is, they have fat beats or whatever, and that it's just entertainment, and that we shouldn't take, women personally, we shouldn't take it personally if we don't consider ourselves whores or bitches. But I think that the lyrics just pit black men against black women, and it's really not doing anything productive for anyone involved.
Okay, thank you very much, Tonya. Any comment on that?
Yeah, yes. I agree with her that there's something wrong with that, and if it makes her feel offended, then it obviously there's a problem. The biggest problem I have with that point of view, and also that is held by Ms. Tucker, is to say to eliminate those voices eliminates more than just those words. When what we're really talking about is being offended by some words, we're talking about eliminating voices. When what should happen is there should just be a greater range of voices. Any more than people who disagree with any one of you have no right to say you have no right to speak. We have no right to sell.
Let me get back to the telephone. It's your turn, caller. You're on the air. Go ahead, please.
I'm listening to what you're saying on the program today, what the young men are saying, and I believe that genocide, if we believe that it is the destruction of a people, why should we contribute to it? And I think that this is what this kind of music and this kind of the videos, and that's what it does.
Okay, you disagree.
I don't agree with that at all, because I agree with it to a certain extent, but when people say we have to just out and out just kill gangster rap, we have to say, I mean, a lot of people focus on the words, focus on the bitches, focus on the hoes. There are stories within there, and what we're asking, when we write our rhymes, we write them for the youth. We write them for the people who are in the situations so that they can hear, they can understand, and they're entertained because they know where we're coming from. A lot of people who emulate that just want to be what we're talking about. We don't write for them to go around and kill somebody or do other things that you were saying. What we want to do is have the people listen to it, and if society wants to contain the children, wants to understand the children, they have to understand the lyrics. Just sit down and stop picking out these words and listen to what is being said.
But let me say this,
But that's why we're here, because we listen to what is being said.
And the thing about it, years ago, television influences one so greatly. When we were coming up, everybody wanted cowboy outfits, because that's all they saw in the movies was cowboy. So they wanted little cowboy guns and so forth. But now they want real guns, because you all are using them and you're saying what to do with them. Shoot them, slit their throat, and F them. That's what you're telling them. First of all, wait, let me finish. First of all, in this letter also from the prisoner, he said, I'm sorry, but that's why he's there, and he said it. I didn't say it. He's young like you, and he said it. He said that I want to be somebody. He said everybody wants to be somebody. And because we are where we are, that is glorified to us as the way to be. What we want to do is to change those conditions in the hood. I'm working every day trying to get people in government. I met with the President of the United States, sat in the Oval Office with him, not Oprah, but Maya Angelou and Dr. Haidt and others, to get people in government that will change things in the community, who will provide job training and who will provide opportunities for you to go to school, and then to change the whole school system so when you leave school, you are fit for a job out in society. That's what we're working for. That is what we're trying to do, because we want children who are coming up now to have a better life than what they have now.
Do you think that people fall in love because they listen to love songs?
I don't know that the people fall in love because they listen to love songs, but I know that love songs create an atmosphere that people want to listen to who fall in love.
But do they fall in love because of love songs? Is it no? Answer my question, please. Is it the driving force behind someone falling in love? Does it control a person? Does that? So you're saying that? So you're saying that music controls everybody to fall in love?
Oh, and I don't think anybody can make the argument that gangster rap.
When I'm with my husband and certain music comes on, yes, it makes me feel
it's an existing
I got to get back to the
condition.
telephone. It's your turn, caller. You're on the air. Interrupt at will. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Brother Kojo. I've been listening to this debate for the last 20 minutes or so, and I just have a couple of comments to say to my brothers sitting around that table. They better wake up and wake up real quick. to what's happening to us as a people. They talk about getting paid. They're not getting paid. Corporations are getting paid. The white man is getting paid. That's who's getting paid. They're talking about, I want to get mine. We as a people are being destroyed from within. This is a master plan. This is a grand plan. And we're buying it hook, line, and sinker.
I don't know about the master plan, but obviously there's some self-destruction taking place. Allow me to jump in and take another telephone call. It's your turn, caller. You're on the air. Go ahead, please.
How are you, gentlemen and ladies? Look, I'm 42 years old. Like, I'm kind of an old fogey. However, I find the music shocking, but I think we old fogies better pay attention to the message. It's a message that, to me, should be viewed as a measuring stick to the hopelessness in the black community. The Tucker keeps talking about Dr. King's days. Well, there was hope in the black community during Dr. King's days because we all felt, and I was a young teenager then, that at once we made white people understand what was going on, they would change their ways. Poverty in the black community is greater than it's ever been. Poverty is particularly searing today. You ought to pay attention to these messages. They may pretend, they may tell you what your future may be like. Thank you.
What I find about these messages is that if you're saying to me that no hope exists in the black community, how it is that these same young men who cannot find their way to a school manage to find their way to a record producer, to an agent, to a record company, to a person who can write contracts? How is it that they manage to find their way out of this community which surrounds them?
For every one that does, there are 10,000 who would love to, but who can't.
And for everyone that does, there's 10,000 of them that are trying to take jobs. They're trying to finish their education. There's 10,000 that do still have hope and trying to live a decent life and provide a wholesome community for their children.
I agree with you on virtually every point.
It's a minority
except
that are doing
one,
this kind of
which is that
stuff.
we should not ignore these voices. We should not silence these voices. We should not allow ourselves, as quote mature society, to get so caught up in the words we miss the message.
Exactly. What I said to you before, I say to you again. These voices are now dominating the music industry. They are selling more records than any other voice.
Why?
You talk as if these voices are not being exposed.
Why are they buying?
Why are people relating to them?
Because they relate to it.
White people, the reason we look like we look is because white people are buying them, and they only want to buy that which is degrading to black people.
Back to the telephone. It's your turn, caller. Jump in at this intersection. You're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Yes, my name is Sansuela. I'm 14, and I have a problem with Miss Tucker because she's interrupting as people on the table are trying to talk.
Adults tend to do that when we're talking to our children. But go ahead. Go ahead.
All right, but
go ahead.
I don't understand why there is a problem with what the rappers are saying. I understand because this is what I live. If she doesn't live it, you can't understand it. You have to listen to the message in order to understand it.
So you don't mind the references?
I have family that is living in some of the worst conditions. We all have families. We might have struggled to get ahead, but we have family that we're trying to help to get ahead. So
I'm
it's
afraid
not
we've
all
lost that caller,
the
but
same
you had a
that
comment.
Yeah, I mean,
you may think.
I've researched a lot of music, and back in the day before I was born, and I'm talking to people of your generation, I've listened to some Jimi Hendrix, and I remember a song that comes off the top of my head called Hey Joe, where he killed his woman because he found her with another lover.
Down by the river, I shot my baby.
Yeah, I mean, and Hendrix was worshipped. He died of an overdose. And then you've got people like Billie Holiday. Billie Holiday, people worship her. She's talking about my man beat me. She was a drug addict. She talked about lynchings. There was one song I don't remember the name of, but she talked about lynchings, and she talked about a lot of violent and explicit stuff. And she was like, oh God, she's so deep. She's so deep. Yeah, strange fruit. That was it exactly.
By that logic, we should ban all jazz because there's some element of it we are offended by. We should ban all jazz. We should ban all bebop. Motown was bought by white people. Does that mean that it was because they love to glorify?
These words have been around. These words were around then, and they never used them like they're being used
There's
now.
greater anger now. There's greater desperation now.
There's less hope. And
there's more death. There's more imprisonment. Things are worse, believe it or not. They are worse.
We're going to do all we can to stop it.
Try 20 some other
Back to the telephone. Back to the telephone. It's your turn. Call you on the air. Go ahead, please.
Yes, sir. My name is Darren Jones, and I'm a Howard University student. And I would just like to say that she is and I mean you no disrespect, ma'am, but you're being very disrespectful. You're not setting a good. You're not being a very good example of what you're trying to tell children to be. Second of all, some of the best poets of our time are some of these gangster rappers. Now, the genre as a whole has a lot of people out there that are nothing but that's the music industry. Period. There are so many people that are getting out there that have no talent whatsoever. But Snoop Doggy Dogg, if you listen to the way he raps, he puts metaphors and similes together that. You know, you're saying he's not getting any intelligence. Because
Allow me to interrupt,
school.
And you're saying that we should only pay attention to style and pay no attention to what he's saying.
See, there again, you're not letting me say what I want to say, sir. You have to listen. Style is a part of it, but everybody's not going to go to school like I am. Everybody's not going to go. I went to the Army 4 years before I did, and I'm paying for my own way to go to school. Everybody's does not have that avenue. I wish I could be a
content? How about the content? The style is one. How about the content of what he's saying? How about the things he's saying about black women? How about the things he's saying about other young black men?
What about the content that I see at my school where I have administrators and officials who are over me, and they in turn receive great, just over the homecoming holiday, the homecoming period where we had all the shows and everything, people were taking $9,000. We're giving $9,000 as incentives to do the homecoming steering committee. But yet and still we have people who cannot get their financial aid paid. We have all kinds of serious issues that need to be addressed. But just because the way someone says it and is different from what you like, then you're taking away from their freedoms. And
I'm afraid I got to go to a break so nobody can really say anything. I'm sorry. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
I'd like to ask you just one question.
Mr. Buster, where you at? Can't scrap a lick, so I know you got your gas to stay on hard. From ganking your road dogs, the hood you threw up with, homies you grew up with. Don't even respect your ass, so now it's time for the doctor to check your ass, fool. Used to be my homie, used to be my ace, now I wanna slap.
That's our show for tonight. Our thanks to all of our guests and, of course, to you for participating on Evening Exchange. Good night.